Hey, everybody. Gotta love a little Marvin Gaye in the afternoon, right? Welcome to Deborah Kobylt Live. And our first guest today, very special guest, Kenyon Healey. Thank you. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did. Great
Thank
job.
you so much for being here. You are an author.
Yes.
You're a speaker.
Yes.
You're a dad of 3 girls.
Dad, yep.
You are, I was going to say a wife. You are, sorry about that. You're a husband.
Yes, it's an amazing wife.
A pastor.
I am.
And just wrote this book, The Diary of a Man's Heart. And a very good friend of mine told me about you and about your book, Corey, who I spent some time in Cuba with. I love him so much. I'm sorry he couldn't come today, but he's shooting a film.
Absolutely.
So when I read this and I got to know a little bit about you and about this book, I just had to have you on.
I appreciate it.
But I love Diary of a Man's Heart. It says what women want to know, but men will never share. So, cough it up. What do women want to know that men will never share?
Yeah, I believe the thing that most men do not share is the truth. And I believe it's the truth.
What truth? There's a lot of truths,
That's
right?
true, absolutely. I believe that many men keep things that are secret that they don't trust someone with. And so sometimes a man can have a truth within himself that he believes that the response that he'll get in return is not worth the risk.
Give me an example.
So let's say, for example, let's make it very practical. Let's say if you're dating somebody or married to someone and they say, hey, you know what, do you love me? Which is a very generic question, right?
Well, if you're married to them, I sure hope the answer is yes.
Well, it on the surface, yes. But when you ask that question, it means something deeper. Because love is a choice in my opinion. And so saying, do you love me? Yeah, I love you. But what does that mean to you? Me explaining what that love means, sometimes I may not reveal.
You're right. It's a little generic, right? It's like giving somebody a peck on the cheek and going, love you.
Exactly.
I mean, what does that mean? I just did that today when I walked in here, right? And I hardly know you.
Absolutely.
So I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And so if my response is not what I believe you want to hear, I may not share it.
Or you may just say, yeah.
Exactly.
Big time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So give me a little bit more, because there's all kinds of things we want to know about men.
Yeah.
From my experience, and I have a little bit, and from just watching my friends, watching my own relationships, I would say the number one issue with women is maybe they feel like they're not listened to as time goes on.
Understood, yeah.
So what do you think is the number one issue for men that they have with us? Probably not much, but just in case.
Well, you know what? I would actually say understanding.
Understanding you guys?
Absolutely.
What's there to understand? Go ahead.
There's plenty. I believe that many of our issues that we have relationally speaking is the lack of communication and or unhealthy communication. And I believe that when expectations don't meet reality, it bridges frustration. And so many times for a man, if the communication is not accurate or healthy, we'll shut down, not because we don't have anything to say, but because if I'm speaking and there's no understanding, we get frustrated. Therefore, why fight a losing battle?
Okay, I'm going to give you a really simple example.
Absolutely.
Which is not even important in the scheme of life whatsoever. Yeah. The garbage.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, let's say, you don't want to do and you've asked the guy to do it. Like, could you take out the garbage when it's full, and you open it up and you notice it's been pushed down so many times, and you're thinking, how many times can I ask somebody to take out the garbage? And then you either get irritated and then it builds.
Absolutely.
Or can the guy just take it out? Or should you just ignore it and take it out yourself? Like, what's the answer? Because it's always the little things that build up to the big things.
Yeah. And usually most issues do start small, but they accumulate over time.
Yeah.
And the small things become big. But specifically to what you said, I believe if he's not taking the garbage out, it's because he values something more than what you asked him. And
so a lack of respect.
It is. Because I don't care enough to do what pleases you, because whatever I'm doing, I find that time spent more valuable than pleasing you in the moment.
I got to live with you.
I'm really. You're going to get me in trouble. You'll get me shot in the parking lot.
Oh, no, we don't want that.
Exactly. Right.
But I'm going to bring you home and say, just do it like him. Okay. But do you agree? It's the little
totally
things,
agree.
and that's where stuff builds.
Yeah. Oh, it builds.
I mean, what did we talk about on the phone? What's the divorce rate in this country?
It's about 50%.
That's incredible. Is that the highest rate it's ever been?
Right now, it's actually trending a little lower, but it's been about 50% pretty much consistently. Yeah.
Why would you say that is? Because generally a breakdown in communication? Is it spouses cheating? What is it?
Typically, it's the big three. It's communication, sex, and money. And so typically those are the biggest issues that arise in most divorce cases. What you'll find that's very ironic is that most people, at least in my experience, which has been thousands of couples, most people that get divorced, they actually get divorced loving each other.
They just can't live together.
Yeah, there's a genuine love or care or concern for one another, but yet I think that we spend so much time on the event, and the event means the wedding day, that we spend no time preparing for the actual marriage. And so, for example, let's say myself, I went to 3 different colleges preparing to be a professional at something. I believe that we spend so much time being professionals at things, but not marriage. So how many books have you read about marriage before we got married, about communication, about sex, etc., that prepares you to be successful when it comes to marriage? And I believe it's very small.
That is so important. And I would say a lot of people will say, I don't need a book. I've been living with her for a couple of years, or I've dated enough. I know. And to which I say, wrong.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like going for classes when you're having a baby, don't you think?
Absolutely.
You know, although I will say those Lamaze classes and everything just worked out great. And the moment of, and it's like, get out, right? I don't even remember how to breathe anymore. I don't know about anybody else, but that's what happened to me.
Absolutely, yeah.
So hopefully if you take marriage classes, you listen.
Yeah. I mean, premarital courses, marriage classes, having a counselor, a therapist, a life coach. And to your point, when you mentioned, people will say, you know what, I've dated before, I've had relationships. Well, I liken that unto this example. It's like having a hammer in a toolbox. You have a tool, but if you only have a hammer, every situation that you walk into, you view it as a nail. Therefore, you hit it. Versus having different tools, a screwdriver, a tape measure, a hammer. Therefore, based upon what life brings you, you can grab the proper tool. If the only tool you have is your past history and experience of dating, you only have one tool to lean upon. The problem is the person that you're with, that tool may not work. And you may keep hitting them with a hammer and you're breaking the thing in which you love.
Give me a concrete example. Like a real example of a situation.
Got it. Okay, so like we mentioned yesterday on the phone, let's say if you meet someone, and let's say you guys come from 2 different backgrounds, which everybody does, which means you bring a different home culture into your relationship. So let's say you and I meet, we both communicate differently, we understand differently, we both have different premises come into a conversation. If I don't have the ability to sit here and listen to you well, listening doesn't mean hearing you. Listening means sitting here with the intent of understanding what you say before I respond. And so while you're speaking, I'm not building a rebuttal. I am not planning my escape or how to...
planning your escape. That's a funny one.
Right? Or debunk what you're saying. I'm listening with the sole purpose of understanding what Deborah is telling me. What that does, it gives me an extra tool, which is a tool of understanding. Once I understand what you say, I can respond intelligently, specifically to what you say. And what you'll notice in most conversations, a person won't respond directly. They will change the subject to their own discourse because they're really not listening to you. And so to me, having an extra tool, which in this example would be understanding, this tool I can implement in our conversation. On the outset, my goal is to understand Deborah. Therefore, I won't speak out of turn. Therefore, I will not cut you off. I will not raise my tone to drown you out because the loudest person in the room is the weakest person. And so for a man, sometimes quietness is an extra tool. So I can implement meekness or a sense of self-control while you're speaking. Me restraining myself does not mean I'm weak. To me, meekness is power under control. I can have strength in a relationship, but yet control that strength to honor and love you well, if that makes sense.
It does, but I seem to think that I'm just going by, I'm the person people will call for advice on their relationships.
Absolutely.
Not that I have the answer. I don't know why they're calling me, but they do. But I notice a lot of women will say, he's not listening. He's shut down. And the minute I even ask for anything, he gets angry. Yeah. Why does that start? What is a woman giving off the wrong signal, perhaps?
I think it's twofold. I think one portion, and I'll work my way backwards. I think let's start with the guy first. Many times, from my experience, even being a man, if I shut down, which I can, and my wife can contest to that.
She's in the studio.
Right?
We got to ask her this stuff. Yeah.
It's not because what she's saying is inaccurate necessarily. Sometimes I just close my mouth because I don't have a response that's healthy. And so sometimes my quietness is to make sure I don't have to come back and to apologize for something I never intended to say. So I will exercise control in speech to make sure I don't dishonor her. And so it's not that I'm not listening to you. It's that I don't want to say anything that can harm you because once I do it, I can't get that back. So I prefer just waiting until I can respond intelligently first without heightened emotion. The flip side of that coin is sometimes a person can get angry because they don't like what they heard. But it doesn't mean what they heard wasn't true. You can be telling the truth and it strikes a chord within the man. And now his big behavior is to make you get off that subject because I don't want to hear what you're saying.
Right. So then what do you do if you're the female in the relationship? And I do think that men and women can handle things differently. I know
Absolutely.
that we live in a world where everything is the same, but emotionally, I don't think it's the same. We are made of different stuff.
Absolutely.
We make
Totally different.
we make human beings.
Absolutely.
So that means
Yeah.
hormonally we are different people.
Totally different, yeah.
Just there. So, but we can communicate equally. So,
Absolutely.
but what should a woman do to try and if she's trying to open up her man?
Absolutely.
Undress? I mean, what is would that be the
Look,
answer?
That doesn't hurt. I'm just playing.
That could just put an end to it right there. Sorry, I had to put that in there.
No. What would to me? I'm a huge fan of questions. What I would ask the man is there a reason why that we cannot communicate open and honestly? And I would wait for an honest response. The thing I believe is that never ask a question you don't want to know the answer to. And so I would ask, if he will not respond the way I want him to, is there a reason why you will not speak to me this way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that would get a lot of guys to shut down. I mean, you're kind of evolved in your entire communication process. You really are. And you told me on the phone you were raised in a family that communicated well. I don't think that's always the case.
I
and,
totally agree with you.
And because of this, your gift is to sort of help other people.
Absolutely.
I really do. I think
totally
most people are not like you.
I totally agree with you.
That's why
Absolutely.
you can both, your wife too. You can all come to my house later, and I'm inviting all of my friends over because you are evolved in this way. You just are.
Yeah.
But for those who are like, what?
Absolutely, yeah.
How do you get them,
And-
men and
yeah,
women, to come to
absolutely,
the table
yeah.
to
what
make
I
the
would
discussion?
do, just personally, for someone that is just a person that naturally shuts down, I would ask them, is there a way that I could communicate to you that would make you feel more comfortable? Because really, without the questions, there's no self-discovery. And let me explain it this way.
I see. So ask a question.
Absolutely.
How can I ask? How can I ask you? I'm going to go back to the garbage.
Yeah.
How can I ask you to please take out the trash when you notice it's overflowing?
Yes, I would word
so
it totally
that-
differently.
okay, so there you go.
Yeah, so this is what I would do.
Oh, I should have brought John today. This
so-
was a mistake. I should have brought him.
Yes, this is what I would
Put
do.
him on the table. Yeah.
I would go to him and say, babe, you know what? Can I ask you something? He's going to say yes. I'm going to say, I just want to express to you how I feel about something. This is not to attack you in any way, but I want you to understand how I feel about the trash. Even though it's a small issue, I just want to take a moment to explain it, right? And he'll pause. Then I'll say, when I ask you to take the trash out, to you it may seem like I'm nagging you or bugging you, but actually I'm asking you because that's something that you can do for me that makes me feel like you love me.
What if the answer is, I just forget?
Sometimes that's true.
I think it is true. I think
absolutely.
sometimes
Yeah.
guys are like preoccupied in their head and
Absolutely.
they're like, oh, trash, let me push it down.
Absolutely. Sometimes that can be true. But what I would do is I would lean upon the fact that you guys have years established in your relationship. I would lean upon that credibility. And meaning I would say, this is something that you can do for me that would make me know that you value what I'm telling you. Because one thing you can do for a guy, if you put him in a position to where you're actually telling him what to do without telling him, and then once he discovers what he thought of, he's more prone to do it. So even though you gave him the idea, I can word it to where when he does it, he receives praise for an idea he thought he created.
I'm actually pretty good at doing that. I figured it out because I need that trash to be sent out. So
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
you just make it seem like it's their idea and wow, this has got to go.
Yeah.
No, you
Sometimes
do have to do
it's
that.
presentation.
Yeah.
Because
It's with everything
Yeah,
in
with
life,
everything.
really.
Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so to me, I think that it's important that a person is able to discover what they should do. Like, meaning this. I believe we live in a culture relationally where people prescribe a lot. Going to a doctor, they write you a script, they tell you what you're going to do. Whenever we tell people what to do, they never have a self-discovery to learn on their own without you being present. So what I do is I want the person that I'm married to, dating, etc., to learn how to self-discover what's healthy for us versus we have to live our entire lives prescribing to you what you're always going to do. So what I would do is I will lead you in the direction that's healthy, but I let you discover the answer for yourself.
I'll give you an example, and it's not a husband and wife thing. I have a 16-year-old who drives, and he needed to be out later than 11 for something because it was actually his sport-related stuff.
Got it.
And I said, well, the law is 11 o'clock.
That's right, yeah.
And he said, well, I can't do it. I said, but the law is 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I ended up, I mean, the way we kind of went at it a little bit. I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is a no-brainer. It's the law.
Yeah. You and the son.
But yeah.
Got it.
But what I did was somebody was in the room, a friend of mine, and she goes, tell him the rule, and if he's late and something happens, he learns the hard way. So I just backed off and I said, okay, you know the rule. And it was hard for me to do that. Now, he did get in by 11.
Yeah.
I didn't threaten him. I didn't say anything. I just said, those are the rules.
Absolutely.
You don't want to take any chances. So, in other words, I didn't bang on him.
Exactly.
I had to pull back. But my girlfriend had to remind me to pull back because I was going all in.
You
And
stayed firm with your standard.
I stayed firm, and I mean, you talk about boundaries. So that's what reminded me. I set the boundary, and I wanted to say, if you don't do it, those keys are good. But I didn't.
You didn't need to.
I stopped.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and that's important.
Yeah, absolutely, it's important. Boundaries are important in every relationship, and I think that once you just reinforce your standard, he had a choice to make, whether he would abide by it or not, and based upon his decision, would determine the outcome. Your boundary just protects you. But it also gives another person a line not to cross. And if you cross that line, there are established rules and there's established consequences.
But to go back to your hammer, I didn't hammer. I just took the tool. I had my little toolbox, and I didn't bring out any of the tools. I just let him make that decision.
Absolutely.
So it's right. You can't go in there and demand all the time. You just have to. You have to really pull back, right?
I agree with you.
Now, one thing I really love about this book, it's 3 parts, right? It's the book and personal assessments, and then you've got the small group questions.
Also small group questions, yeah.
You have to be willing to do that because we actually went through a little bit of this last night, and it wasn't in any way done in an attacking way. You know, 2 people writing down their little answers, and it really works.
It does.
You know, this is the kind of stuff. And it's fun.
It is.
That's the one thing I like about this book.
Too.
Yeah,
you learn a lot about yourself and the person you're doing it with. And so the questions, they're there to build prescription. Discovery versus prescription. So the questions help you discover, what do I think? Why do I think this way? Why do I act this way? Why do I treat you this way? And so once you're able to answer those questions in writing, it feels less aggressive when I can just read your response versus saying, what do you think? What do you think on the spot? I can think it through when I'm writing it down.
Do you do group classes for
do.
people? Because
We
that's
do.
great.
Yeah.
And you know, group classes for couples. And
We do.
That's great. And clearly all kinds of couples. People who aren't married,
Absolutely,
people, you know, gay, straight, whatever.
We do.
Just
We do.
people
Everybody. Yeah. We do.
Now, you also have a portion in the book here. You talk about how to attract the people that you want.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because again, I always hear the complaint from, there's your wife. She is beautiful.
Isn't she gorgeous? I know. She's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. We've got that picture of her there. Wow.
Yeah, she's something else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at her right there, but it's like, oh, there's her picture. There you go. Just for the people. So now they know what she looks like.
Oh, yeah, they know now.
Yeah, they know now. How do you attract the people you want? Because again, a lot of my friends are like, I keep attracting the same jerks. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
Absolutely.
What do you do if you're trying to attract something else that you're not attracting?
I believe you must become what you desire. And so to me, I believe that a person that perpetually attracts the same thing is because they have not changed who they are. It's very easy to
Give an example. I'm better with examples.
Got it. So let's say a lady says, you know what? I keep attracting men that cheat. No, you don't. You attract men that you will not hold a standard with. And so
Once again, the boundaries.
Exactly.
Here's my boundary.
There you go. People treat you the way you allow them to and the way you teach them to. And so it's not that you're attracting the wrong person. It's that when the person comes, you don't have the proper tools in your life, whether it's through communication, whether it's through wisdom, whether it's through different relationships and mentors, to help you see warning signs and to make the appropriate choice. So you will date guy after guy after guy that have the same red flags, and for whatever reason, you can't see them, but you're not willing to put a team around you to help you see what you cannot see. So one of the ways in which a person can attract something better is to allow those in that person's life to tell them the truth about themselves.
Friends.
There you go.
You do need your friends to be very honest with you.
Very honest.
And I have been honest with my friends, and I think I take them, but I'm kind about it.
Yeah.
And I take them back a little bit, and I'm like, look, I want to be a good friend
Exactly.
to you.
Absolutely.
I want to be a good friend, not a friend who
Absolutely.
just agrees and says what you want. But this is how I see it. Doesn't mean I'm right, but it's true.
Yes.
You need your people.
Yes, and there's safety in that counsel. So if that friend is going through the same scenario over and over again or attract the same kind of guy, my question becomes, what is the only common denominator in these scenarios? It's that person. And so it can't be every single guy is this way when there's never a self-assessment to say, why is it that this type of guy is so comfortable approaching me to begin with? Why do I choose to get involved with the same kind of guy when I've seen the red flags prior? And so to me, a self-assessment says, clearly I am not putting boundaries and or standards in place that will fend these kind of guys off. So, for example, like myself, I remember I was walking through an apartment complex one time, and this lady was what they call it, like a cattle caller, they call it. She was like, "Hey, baby," like yelling from her 3rd floor balcony. And what I did was I ignored her and kept going. My silence gave her a response. And so
That's rare. A lot of men would have turned around and go, "Hey, baby."
Yeah, no, thank
so
you.
I am very impressed with that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Because the thing is, if you believe you can scream from a third floor and I will respond to you, that already gave you a precedence on how you can treat me. I'm not one, I value myself too much to be cattle called from a 3rd floor. So if we're going to have a conversation, we will meet in a more appropriate environment and have a better conversation. So you set the stage from the beginning on how a person values you. And I believe women should have their standards so high that only a few men can meet them to begin with.
I have little things that are so important to me. I realize that opening a door is gone. It's actually gone. And when someone...
I do it, babe. Yeah, I do it.
Like I said, you're both coming home with me tonight. It's little stuff, or just waiting until to eat.
Yeah.
Just the little things in life
Absolutely.
that can make, I think, a woman feel so much more valued.
Yeah, and appreciate
I'm
it.
talking little.
Absolutely.
And then it's amazing what I think. This is what I tell my friends. Just those little things, and what they'll give back is times 10.
It is.
If you open the door and just wait to eat and the little
Absolutely.
things. I think women just want those little niceties.
Oh, I
and
totally
respect.
agree with you. And yeah, and consistency. Is this going to sound awkward at first? So let me unwrap it. I view women like a bank. I know that sounds crazy, but let me explain it. In this sense, if you put money into a bank consistently, whenever a need arises in the future, and when you go make a withdrawal, there's sufficient funds to meet that need. Most men, many men, I would say, they will have an account and they will not make deposits.
No,
But-
they have the respect isn't there,
exactly.
and they don't. They don't do that.
And so they want to go and withdraw on something they never deposited. And what happens is the bank gives them insufficient funds. Eventually, it gives you fees. That's relationships. If you invest, like you're saying, you do nice things, you're making deposits, she doesn't mind making sure you want to withdraw, she gives you what you need. But if you don't make deposits and you always want withdrawals, not only will you get insufficient funds, eventually fines come, attitudes come, distant comes, coldness comes. So if a person wants the relationship to change and be more healthy, you must make healthier deposits. Therefore, when you make a withdrawal, she doesn't feel used as though she's the only person doing the work.
I can't imagine what some people will say when you give them this analogy. They'll be like, and you can really deposit too, while you're at it. But anyway, how about millennials versus older couples, if you will? Because I personally view millennials as people who are more open to just living. They're used to working side by side, men and women,
true.
different races, religions, whatever, at least through my experience.
Absolutely.
They're open on musical tastes. I like millennials. I personally think they have a horrible rep, but I don't know. I find them interesting. Are they a little more open to sitting down with their spouse, a significant other?
And I believe the reason is because when you're younger, at least nowadays, we're being equipped now with more tools younger than my parents or my grandparents. And so we also have
It was more traditional then too. It's
Absolutely.
like you're going to cook, I'm going to work. And
Exactly.
God forbid if you're the kind of woman who absolutely wanted to work, which I think most women were. It's like you're
in
just
trouble.
your hands are tied.
Exactly. And now because culture have shifted, also we've which we should have known before, is that women are brilliant. And most of our generations, half of our brilliance was left on the sidelines. And now we're learning that women have an IQ and EQ equal to men.
If not higher.
Exactly, right. In many cases, it's higher. And when we're combined with that brilliance, we can do so many more things.
Are we not able as women to really multitask? I mean, I think we have a better ability, no offense, maybe you can multitask well, but to just do and juggle a lot of balls in the air.
I believe my wife juggles things better than I do. I am more of I'm going to grab a project, finish it type of person. She is able to jump in and out of pots very easily, and I actually honor that about her. And so her ability to be great does not impede on my ability to be great. And so to me, I believe that this generation, we look at it as it's a team. And if my partner, which is my wife in this case, if she's amazing, I'm amazing. If she's great, then I'm great.
That's what couples have to remember.
Absolutely.
Why fight and butt heads?
Yeah.
If you're great, she's great.
Absolutely.
And if she's great, you're
Absolutely.
great. And then you rise together.
Exactly, yeah. Absolutely.
We only have a few more minutes. So in the age of Trump, where, he will just sort of tweet out anything that's on his mind.
Yeah.
Again, I've heard some complaints from people that the men in their lives feel like they've they sort of have license to be equally as, may I say, arrogant. What do you think about that?
Yeah, to me, it personally disgusts me as it relates to the way in which he speaks. Leadership-wise, that will pan out over time because he's only been there for about a year. And so 3 years from now, I'll have a better picture on what he can and cannot do. But as far as his behavior, his verbiage, the ideologies that he's speaking against different type of races, groups of people, religions, I think it's very dangerous, to be honest with you. I believe it's a lack of leadership to be able to speak without any regard or consequence. I believe that
not care.
And not care.
Not care if there's a consequence.
Absolutely.
And you're egging on the guy across the ocean with his little red button and your big red button.
Absolutely.
You know, there's just no sense of responsibility.
Absolutely.
But again, he doesn't care.
Absolutely.
I couldn't imagine dragging him into one of your sessions with his wife.
Absolutely.
That poor woman looks miserable, but that's another story. I don't know, but I'm just gauging a little bit.
No, I understand, yeah. To me, I believe that it requires, if men are mimicking what they see in him, they are doing their families a disservice.
I agree.
Because what
They're
is
not
doing,
being strong.
Not at all.
They're being arrogant.
Absolutely. And it's very hurtful. Absolutely.
So what's the takeaway that men and women can get from your book, Diary of a Man's Heart? What women want to know and men never share. What's a good takeaway?
I believe a good takeaway would be that your relationship of any type can be very healthy if you are both willing to sit down and put in the work.
You have to do that.
And put the work. It won't be easy. It won't be quick, but it's worth it.
What about people who don't want to put in the work and they're like, we're fine. That's tough too. Then what do you do?
Absolutely. Without self-discovery, there is no transformation.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Now you're available by Skype. I mean, you work with all kinds of people.
All
you work
types.
with all types of couples.
All
Some
types.
faith-based,
Yeah,
some
some
not.
not. Absolutely.
You do Skype sessions, right?
We-
So
yeah,
how
yeah,
can
mhm,
people
yeah.
find you?
Yes, they can find us on Instagram at Kenyon Encourage. They can also find us on Facebook at Kenyon Healey. Babe, what's the email that we use for most of the clients?
Tiana.
It's Tiana.Healey, that's TIANA.HEALEY at iCloud.com.
And people can also email me as well
Yeah.
for that information
Absolutely.
because I think it's valuable to do even just one Skype session. If you can drag your significant other,
Oh, it'll change it. Yeah, absolutely.
it could change it because
Absolutely.
you're just a positive guy and you just want to
Absolutely.
see good changes happen.
Absolutely.
Nobody,
Yeah.
people just have to move over an inch a little bit.
Just a little bit. And then they'll find that inch change their entire lives.
Yeah, because nobody wants to hurt, not
Not
the
at all.
men, not the women.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's great. So again, the takeaway.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that your relationship, your marriage, your life can be great if you're willing to roll up your sleeves, put the work in. And it doesn't have to be secret no more. You can be safe and you can be covered by the person that you love if you're willing to come to the table and
Plus,
grind it out.
it's more fun.
It is, absolutely.
It's a lot
I
more
love
fun
it,
that way.
yeah.
And I think also it's better for your work.
Absolutely.
It's better for your friendships.
Your private life always goes public at some point. Just a matter of when and where. So therefore, if it's going to go public, I'm going to make sure it looks good.
And for those who just don't want to come to the table, what do you suggest for them if they just feel hopeless?
Yeah, if you feel hopeless,
Are they going to end up in that 50% pile where they get divorced?
I hope not, but that happens in many cases. But if they can reach out and get some help, that's the first step. Even after doing that, if they just refuse to help, I think that's where that boundaries come in at, into where you have to make clear boundaries on what you will and will not accept, and then be willing to enforce the boundaries that you set. Because you never want to set a boundary you're not willing to pull the trigger on. And so you have to be honest with yourself. Am I willing to set the boundary and enforce it, regardless if they stay or leave? Because you love yourself enough that you will not be abused, misused, disrespected anymore. It's a choice we make to love ourselves better.
Yeah, and how you frame your, for lack of a better word, argument
Absolutely.
really matters so that it looks
Absolutely.
like it's more the other person's idea and not
Absolutely.
attack them. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Kenyon, this
Thank
was
you.
a lot of fun. It went
I
kind of
appreciate it.
fast. Diary of a Man's Heart, available on Amazon.
Amazon, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
check
you
us
so
out.
much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
I appreciate
And
it.
thanks for being here, and we will be right back with our next guest. Stay tuned.
Awesome, thank you. Oh, it's okay. No, you're good.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you don't have to. No, it's okay. No worries at all.
I'm so fired up on you. This is from the soul. I'm from the soul about my motivation and my desire to see people do better physically and mentally as well.
Come on, baby, just pump it.
mean, it really fires me up. Yeah, I get so animated. I want to bounce out of this chair, but it's from the heart. And I look at that camera lens and I go, you know what? I have you for this time period that we're going to train together. I have your back, and we are going to make the most of this time.
Had a blast with you, and remember this: train hard, train smart, and make it happen. Thanks so much. Yeah, it's good stuff, you guys. Give me that. You guys are so big.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here for our second segment of Deborah Kobylt Live. And joining me in studio now is a friend of a friend. Thank you, Joanne Mosconi, playwright and director Joanne Mosconi, for introducing me to you. And I've been reading about your story, and we talked yesterday on the phone. Steven Maresca, thank you for being here. Italiano. We call you do fitness therapy. And after talking to you, I loved your story. And your story of how you help people through your fitness regime sort of gain clarity in their lives. And basically, you had a horrible accident in 2012. Can you briefly tell us about what happened? Because it's terrifying to me when I even think about it.
I
Go
still
ahead.
kind of get the chills as well.
When we talked, I couldn't even believe it, especially when you compared yourself to spaghetti.
Yes.
Go ahead.
2012, was surfing out here in Malibu area, and it was my wife and I, and she was the only one on the beach. Went out for one last surf. And,
Wow, look at you there.
And that was a good wave.
Yeah.
And it was actually a very small wave. I got flipped over and my head hit the sandbar and my feet went over my head and I subluxated my fifth vertebrae, which means my bones jumped into my spinal canal and it kinked my spinal cord. So.
And you said you felt nothing. You couldn't even lift your head.
Yeah. Well, what happened is it draped my head. I used the analogy of spaghetti, and being in the fitness field, I've been hurt a few times and everything, but I knew I was in a lot of trouble because I was unable to stand. I had searing pain throughout my whole body, like a knife going through me, and I knew if I didn't get help very quickly, I was going to probably drown there.
So you couldn't move, and you couldn't yell out for her.
I was screaming. I'd never lost consciousness. I was screaming, but she was far enough down the beach, she didn't really see. And I've hurt myself enough that when she did see me, she thought I had just kind of hurt my arm, but then she knew I was in trouble.
Right, because you weren't moving.
Yeah. So, yes, I have a Baywatch. I married a Baywatch girl because she came running down the beach.
Always important to marry that Baywatch girl, especially if you're going to go surfing like that. But so then essentially you were paralyzed.
Yes. I ended up
a fitness guy who's worked with Jake Steinfeld, Body by Jake. He's a very good friend of mine. I texted his wife this morning and I said, Tracy, I've got this guy on. He worked with Jake. She was all excited about
Some
that.
good times with Jake for sure.
Yeah, and you've worked with folks on The Biggest Loser.
Yes, absolutely.
You've got quite an illustrious career. And you've been in fitness your whole life.
My whole life, absolutely.
And suddenly you're paralyzed.
Yes.
What goes through your head?
Well, I just, when I went into surgery, I was obviously very scared and stuff like that. And, it is my life. And just movement in general. And to all of a sudden not be able to feel anything below your chest was very sobering. And I remember coming out of surgery, 6.5 hours of surgery. They put me back together. And I remember waking up and I could wiggle my right toe.
Ooh.
And then I passed out. But I said, if you're going to give me that, I'm faith-based in a sense that if you're going to give me that ability, I'm going to take it and run from there. And that's when my new journey, in a sense, started. I've always been sweet on life and stuff, but it's a little sweeter now, for sure.
If it's not all attitude, here you could have been paralyzed for the rest of your life. After surgery, your toe wiggles a little, and right there you were grateful.
Yes.
That's really something. If it's not all about your attitude, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But
you didn't, no.
It is. It really is about the attitude. And I think coming from the fitness field, I really believe the way that you approach fitness is about your attitude. And you can either make this something that is work at all times and it's almost laborsome, or what the Maresca way, I call it, is.
I like that. You have something called the Maresca way.
Yes.
And what is the Maresca way? Because that's very interesting. I mean, incorporate your own philosophies
Right.
into fitness. And fitness is everywhere today, let's face
Yes,
it.
yes,
But
very
it's nice to, mind, body, spirit, because without one, it's really kind of hard to keep up the other, don't you think?
Very much so. And
Yeah.
I really think I have this little saying, there is no excuses. I do not care what level you are at, or maybe even some, adaptations that need to happen, whether there's disabilities, what have you. We can always find something to keep you healthier and more vibrant. And being in the position I was, where I had to learn to walk again. I literally had to learn to walk again. And I was in a facility where there was people who will never walk again. So it really rang true to me that because we have the ability to move, all right, there is no excuse to be able to sit on that, and just watch yourself get unhealthy and put more stress on this society, as within diabetes, heart disease, and what have you. And I'm not asking people to be the body beautifuls. What I'm asking people to do is move and have fun, enjoy this life. Come on, this is a rad thing.
I love being outdoors. I did 2 marathons last year. I walked them. I did the New York and LA marathon. I've done a half marathon. I'm not a marathoner, let me be clear, even though I finished them. Because I love being outside and just looking at people and being part of people. Yeah. So I walk my way there, but you don't have to do 27 miles. You can do a mile. You can do half a mile just to be out there. Right. So when you do your class, I know that you do a lot of private training, but when you do your class, you do one at Equinox, for example, in Santa Monica, California here. And my friend who takes it says it's truly like therapy. There are days she walks in there just feeling horrible, and she comes out very uplifted. What are you doing in there? I mean, are people just saying, I had a horrible thing happen to me? Is it real therapy? Or?
Right. Yeah, I think the way that I address it is, like I said, I feel so blessed that I can be in front of, 20 to 50 people and be standing up and be able to promote something that I'm passionate about, is fitness. Now, within that, my feeling is nothing else matters. Within that 1 hour, when you come to be with me and in this class, we're gonna have a blast. It's not just about doing push-ups, doing, shoulder presses, lunges, all the things that are really great to involve your body and make it change. But let's have an experience. So
I like that. So you make it an experience, and you make it about being positive. And again, you said you're a faith-based guy yourself. So
and
when you incorporate that, but without, hammering someone over the head, I think that's very valuable. Yeah. I think you gain a lot more.
And when I say that too, when I say faith-based, it's all types of faith.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't even have to be, it could be the tree faith, whatever. But
there's
faith that there's something
that there's a higher purpose to being there.
And I think that's also what helped me in my recovery and stuff. But in my class, I try and say in the Maresca way, there's 3 components. All right. Mm-hmm. All right. You have to have variety. You have to be consistent, and you have to have fun. I mean, come on, so we play some air guitar, we dance a bit, when the tunes are going and stuff like that. And I think what happens is people are able to just let down and just take that breath and realize that, it's not so bad. And I think too that knowing that when you leave the class, it allows you, and Kenyon before, seeing how you can maybe address, your spouse. You're a little bit more relaxed. You might be able to go through those stages.
You should do couple classes. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah. And then bring Kenyon in there too.
Oh,
so he can be talking, talking about people's problems, and you're working them out. It's like, oh wow,
yes, we
talk about mind, body, spirit. You've got it all covered.
Our Skype would be off the chart for sure.
Yeah. Do you actually do Skype classes in terms of fitness?
We did when I used to do some things for exercise equipment that we would actually Skype them at the same time. Where you're going to find me now, and I'm doing a new web series or a Instagram series. We'll start at the end of this month.
What's it called?
And it's everything Maresca Way, of course. Come on.
Of course, the Maresca Way. Do you also incorporate nutrition for people? And
that is always the biggest question. And this is what I want to say to you about nutrition. All right, nutrition is a key component. If you want your body to change physically as well as the health aspect of it, your nutrition has to be on the forefront. Now, there is so many different...
There's so many different ways.
It's exhausting.
You can calorie... I mean, basically calorie counting and trying not to have, the GMOs and the... I'm really... getting really good at just looking at my labels. If there's that high fructose corn syrup, down it goes. Even though it is in my coffee creamer and I cheat a little bit. But,
right.
You got to have your cheats. But if you're eating too much...
I have a simple thing.
Yeah.
It's called pick it, pluck it, or shoot it, or catch it.
Okay,
Meaning, if you can pick it, all right, can you pick it off a tree? Can you pluck it out of the ground?
I thought you meant plucking a chicken. I'm so sorry. I really did.
That too, though, I guess, because that's part of the shoot it or catch it.
Did you think
type
that
of deal.
too? I was thinking, oh, pluck your own chicken? Okay,
No,
pick
but
it, pluck it.
or catch it or shoot it, meaning animal base. All right, catch it out of the ocean. All right, or if you're a meat lover, not everybody's a meat lover. We can go in and see. This is where we get complicated. My biggest thing is I want you to eat naturally.
Yeah, you have to eat what you like.
Yes, and being Italian, all right, we love to eat. And the things that are processed, obviously, are probably the worst things for you.
I have always been saying the reason why everyone's fat is because so much of our food is coming out of a factory as opposed to plucking it and picking it and whatever else you said. So am I right?
It's very much so.
It's true. I mean, look at the incidence of diabetes.
Yes.
And I actually think it's also related to memory loss and Alzheimer's and whatnot.
so.
I mean, they say people are living longer now, but I don't know. People lived into their 80s and whatnot. It's happening sooner, all
yes.
these issues, especially diabetes and overweight people.
And I think, like I say, the nutrition is such a complicated vein of being healthier that we can argue this or that. My biggest thing is, even within the pick it, pluck it, or catch it, shoot it type of deal, or pluck the chicken, is there's going to be arguments. Well, hey, you shouldn't have so much potatoes, or because those are starches, or this. What I'm just saying is, show me that you can eat natural. Show me you can do that. Then we can start to go from that point.
And your portions.
Yeah. Yes,
you said we're
portion.
Italian. I don't know. The way I grew up, second, thirds, and fourth helping was just the norm. And it's like, I'm okay. And then some aunt or grandparent or whatever would come and just put more on your plate. And you're thinking, geez. And you were taught to just keep going.
You're not allowed to say no. Are you
No,
kidding? You'd be in trouble
you weren't.
for that,
You
right?
really would actually get in trouble.
Very
And
much
then
so
thank God I had a pet because I'd be putting it down there. It's terrible. It would promote lying. So,
and we know too, like within all those things, and one last thing on nutrition for me is those processed things are inflammatory. They're sugar. My wife is a diabetes rep. She reps, and it's an epidemic, and it's not an epidemic in adults. It's an epidemic in kids now that we're seeing.
The type 2.
The type 2, and that's something that doesn't have to be. It is literally a disease that we don't have to have because
Type 2,
it's nutrition. Yeah, type 2 diabetes with nutrition and exercise.
If people can just, as you said, just take that first step, just get to a class, get to something, and look you up. How can people look you up? And maybe take one of your classes online or whatever, just to see what you do.
Right. I have a studio down in the South Bay in Redondo Beach area. And that's my private studio, and that's where I do all my work usually. I mean, most of my work. I do go to the Equinox and do the class at Equinox in Santa Monica, but only once a week and everything.
And that's the class my girlfriend
takes. That's called
takes.
Tough Love. That's Maresca's Tough Love and everything. That if you were to come to the class, that's how I teach my students, both individual, and I do have group trainings at my studio as well down in Redondo Beach and everything.
But again, for all the classes I've taken, to tell people who haven't taken your class, what is it that you're doing where they're actually leaving there feeling really positive? Because it's not just the exercise. What are you saying to people?
I think, and I will say, and we kind of talked about this when we were on the phone, the hardest thing is who I am is my product. So it's not like something that I can, so it is coming to me to a degree. But within doing that, I'm going to give you the tools. So I'm the one that calls you out, looks you in the eye, and says, "Are you ready for this? Are you really ready for this?"
That's
and
intimidating.
gives you, in a good way, the steps that are going to allow you to achieve what you want to do. Now, is that to be on the cover of a magazine? Is it, hey, I just want to be healthier. I want to have more energy. So that's what's so hard is I can't lump you all in one. I need to know what you are individually. But in my class, like you say, what do you leave with in my class? Well, what you're going to leave with, I have a lady who's 73 years old, and then your friend, or our friend for that matter, who is probably one of the strongest people I've ever trained in that class.
She is so lean and
she
fit.
Is, yes.
She texted me this morning and she said, wow, if I could go see him every day, I'd be in like amazing shape. I'm thinking, seriously, Joanne? She's in incredible shape.
So understanding how to present a class or a workout that everybody from that level to the other level can grab something out of that and
not
use
feel
it.
intimidated. I have to tell you, I've been to plenty of spin classes. I'm always the girl in the back, and they're like, come on, you can do it. And I'm thinking, leave me alone.
Yes.
I just need to do it at my own pace. You're laughing over there, but it's true.
No, it's so true. And I call it code switching. You got to know. For me to come up to you and tell you, Deborah, come on, pick it up a notch. And I look in your eyes and
I
you
might
go,
cry. I actually had somebody do that to me
at
I don't want to say. He's the nicest guy. And he came up to me saying, come on, I was so embarrassed that I actually started crying. Isn't that
Yes.
terrible?
No, it
I
isn't.
mean,
All right, so I appreciate
so I don't
you
like
saying
getting
no.
called out sometimes. I
No.
get really embarrassed.
And I
so.
think that's what happens. And that's, I would say, one of my
Remember
biggest
that.
quests. No, and I do. And that's why if you asked anybody that's been with me, no matter whether they are a professional athlete or somebody who's never exercised before, they all feel the same and all feel loved, all right? And know that I am not going to, and I think that is something that is lost within this field. I think what happens is we see things on TV, all right, as how trainers are, and it's harder, faster, more. Not, I'm a positive. I'm a glass half full. Come on, I mean, you know my story.
Yeah.
If my glass isn't half full, come.
And people come in there with all kinds of different levels of fitness. Some people have asthma, you might not even know it, or mild asthma, or, you know, some people might be recovering. So you got to go a little easy on
Yes.
people. You know, the fact that you were tapped to work on Biggest Loser,
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of emotional eating. No one gets that large without having a reason while they're eating like that, right?
Yeah.
You've got to really be easy on people. I've always found the trainers on that show to be very kind, I think.
Yeah, and you know what I would say is I worked for the producers of The Biggest Loser, J.D. Roth and Todd Nelson, and what I did, it was right after I was hurt. They asked me to do a show called My Big Fat Revenge, and I was going to be one of the trainers. There was going to be two of us, and then I got hurt, and so I had to come and talk to these girls and. Here I am I'm now upright. I have a brace on and telling them, you know, I'm going to see you in 2 months and there's going to be no excuses. But truly not knowing too in that arena that, you know, everybody has a story or everybody has a reason why they've got maybe out of shape or what they're, and you got to be, how do I say that? You have to be aware of that to a degree where you're not going to push somebody away from being fit. And I think that's what happens sometimes is you have to understand.
You've got to
everybody's
understand how they got there.
Everybody's different.
It's,
and that's
you know,
the
whether
that's the
you're
Maresca
Joanne,
way, yeah.
who needs to lose nothing.
Nothing, no.
And I don't even know what she has to tone, but she does it because mentally she loves it.
And that's a
Or
great. That's a great. I'm so sorry, but I don't want you to lose that. That's what it is. It isn't about her body being.
No,
this.
it's a whole
already.
mental thing.
It's she does it for the mental capacity. I
What
wish I
about
had
people on the rebound a little bit? Like this past year, I got a little injured with my knee.
Yeah.
And even though I was training on marathons, I actually trained for some of it in a pool
yes,
because my knee
I
was
know,
bothering
perfect,
me. And I
right.
was so determined. I was up at every morning at 5:30 and in the pool I went. And I actually did my own little aerobic exercise because I
Right.
couldn't even kick because my knee was so bad.
Right.
But what do you say to people who gained some weight back that they had lost? Because
Yes.
I actually have to lose a little bit of weight again. I don't have to, but I want to. And I'm like, oh man, how did I get myself here?
Right.
I'm a little down about it. So how do you get somebody back into the game?
Number one is you have to look yourself in the eye. You can't ask me, and you have to be true to yourself. All right, do you really want to make a change in your body, both that like you said physically? If you want to lose some weight, I'll tell you right now, it is that nutritional thing. We're going to have to go back to that picket plucket issue. You got to be eating naturally, all right. And our Italian heritage, you cannot have.
I'm a picker. I don't even know I'm picking. As I'm walking through the kitchen,
That's right.
I pick it up, in it goes.
And
I'm
before
talking
you
to some
know,
kid.
right?
I'm
Yes.
going back around, and it's like in it goes, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, how often am I doing this? And I've got to have food in there,
Right.
and I have good stuff. It's an orange or a banana or whatever, and I'm a picker, and it's
Right.
I just don't realize I'm doing it. I need to have one of those rubber bands
Yes,
that
yeah,
I
well,
just kind
and
of
see,
go
that's
like
what-
this, right?
That's also finding
Smack
the
myself.
things that work for you. All right, and for me, wise, all right, what I train, I love that is
It's
also
true. I
making
don't know
people
I'm doing
aware
it.
of what are the things you love. All right, so running hurts you, right? So we're gonna have, but you
No,
want to
I'm
run.
still
yeah.
walking. I did
yeah,
about 6
so,
miles this morning.
But we talked about this on the phone. You were the one, was it when you were doing ballet at 5? If mom didn't get it,
I was a skater.
Skater.
And,
I'm
I'm
so
extremely
sorry. Yes.
competitive with
Yeah,
myself.
So
oh
if-
yeah, we'd be up at 5:30 in the morning. It's like, Mom,
Yes.
get out of bed, because I was a competitive
Right.
skater. But
So-
that's in me. Like,
yeah. So you're a very
I'm
select.
very disciplined when it comes
Yes.
to athletics.
90% of the population is not. So you ask me, how am I going to? So that is up to the Maresca way, is to create an environment or make you aware that everything you do within movement is burning calories. So just like how you're saying, when you're going around the kitchen picking,
And I
if
am.
we can keep you from picking, you're still moving around. You have 3 kids, right? Or I mean, you were growing up with them. You were moving all the time, right? Especially when they were younger. I know Katie, he was telling me the ages of his kids. I know that's why he's so fit, to both of them, because they're so young. You're always so it's utilizing that you don't have to go to a gym. You don't have to be in these structured exercise programs to make your body change. But I'm going to say this. It's not easy. let me see your eyes on it. It's not easy.
I know, but what is easy in life, right?
Right.
You're dealing with
Come
relationships
on.
isn't easy.
It
Nothing's
isn't.
easy. Your
So-
job's not easy,
but
right?
you know what is, and this is me, and this is maybe where I lose people, but that's the fun of it. People, I love to
like
train.
that.
That's the fun of it.
Pushing through, right?
Right? Well, you just showed a video. I don't know if you showed the one of me learning to lunge and how precarious it was.
Yeah,
I
we
remember,
did.
So, I remember when the therapist goes, do a lunge. I'm like, all right. I know how hard a lunge is,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to go down. There's no way. But the fact that they had the belt on, but the journey of I just want to do a lunge without them holding me was such a great path for me type of thing to see gains and stuff. And if you can be true to yourself, and if you truly want to make a change, number one, I'm going to say you have to be consistent. You can't say this week, you know what? I was so good. I didn't eat, double portions. I ate that pick it, pluck it
You're so
thing.
right, but that's the same thing with anything in life. Keep it consistent.
Right.
If Mondays you do this, keep it up next Monday and Wednesday.
Right.
You're right, because if
Yeah.
you're all over the place, just like picking,
Right.
it's not going to work, right? You're right about that. So
And
consistency.
Consistency. Variety. Right? Find the things you like to do. Now, because and I'm going to go off, you running hurt you, right? So you're not able to do it to the degree you want. So let's find something. Let's try something different in a sense that doesn't maybe put that impact.
For me, it's easy. I'll go walk, I'll go bike, I'll go hike
See,
without.
people don't know that on the outside. Like, I've just heard that you're supposed to do it this way.
I'll just find another way.
Go dancing. All right, my parents are in their late 70s. They are ballroom competitive dancers. They look fantastic. They're never home.
That's so cool.
But it's so rad, right?
Wow.
Right? So they stay active in that connection. All right,
Talk about a connection.
It's so rad. You should see them do the tango. Oh, dear.
Wow, you're
Yeah,
70-year-old
Argentinian
folks?
Tango, baby.
That's pretty cool.
So, but it's
Just
I
whatever
think-
you like, right? Whatever
yes.
it is.
And on that, though, too, I will say, and this is the hardest thing for people to do, is to do something outside your comfort zone. All right, you've never skated before. Try skating.
I'm always trying to drag people out to skate with me. They're like, no.
Yes. But or you've never, or like, hey, I usually go for a walk around the neighborhood. Hey, maybe this time go for a hike up in the, we live here and
Go play some basketball.
Exactly.
That's
And then
kinda
you don't
fun.
have to be, and it's okay to laugh at yourself. You could be a total nightmare in doing the activity, but you're trying something.
You know what I sometimes try and do is like play basketball in the front of the house. We have like a
Right.
thing there in the back, or just go to a park because it's really good. It's really good for your upper arms, right?
yeah.
You can find stuff if you've got the
Absolute.
attitude there.
If you can, the biggest thing I would like to people to understand with the Maresca way is every type of movement is good. In the sense that if you are getting up and moving around, whether that's walking, hiking, playing basketball, surfing,
And find people surfing. Find people like-minded, right? I really seek my friends out who I'm
think
like
that's
on
a
Mondays.
great-
I'm like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? You want to
Right.
go do this? I really have accumulated a group of friends who like all kinds of different fitness,
Right.
and who try and eat the way I do. You know,
Yeah, when you surround yourselves with, like people that have this common goal, yes, it definitely makes it easier. And you know what's so great about, and that's what's neat about the people that come to me at my group times is it is a community. And those days that you didn't want to be there, but you got there, to me, it's already a gain. But now you're in there, and whoever knows what happened the night before, how you're feeling about yourself, or the scales. You get around a group of people that have the common goal, and they pull you into that community. It helps so much. 100% of the time, people go, like Joanna said, I leave the class, and I was about to cry before class, and after, I'm high-fiving, happy as,
Yeah, she told me that this morning.
Right,
She
right.
said, I
So-
walked in there one day and I had a tough day. And I walked out of there just feeling like I could take it
Get
on.
on, yeah, and
Well, I think we were designed, our bodies have to move
Yeah.
because it helps improve what's
Right.
going on here. I'm not one to have to take pills unless you're really ill.
Yeah.
But I feel like if something's not going on right up here,
Right.
best you can,
Right.
move.
And move
know?
organically. We get
Yeah.
so linear, and we turn it off. Again, it comes really based from what happened to me. But I played soccer at high levels and stuff, and so it's something that is very passionate. Is that I don't just stay in the line, or I don't that we want to move organically, and this body is a really rad thing. Let's take advantage of it.
So what's your takeaway for people? The Maresca way, which I call fitness therapy, because
like
people
that.
come out of
Absolutely.
there feeling
I will give it
happy. Not just worked out and sweaty,
Yeah.
but
And that-
happier for
yeah.
having been there.
Yeah, and that is one thing you were saying within the therapy base is, in school I wish they would have had more therapy classes in my, exercise physiology, because you hear things about people and stuff that, for me, I don't try and delve in more than I'm in the physical capacity, but I guarantee you start taking care of yourself, you're going to have the ability to maybe go after those problems or those obstacles a little bit better. What I would say to take away from it is the Maresca, there's no excuses. Let me see your eyes again. All right, there's no excuses.
I'm not making any excuses.
No, right?
I just have to put the food away on the counter.
Well, and that's it. There's no excuses, so that's
No, it's
making
true.
that effort, right?
Let me also add, you work with Next Step. You do fundraising for them as well,
Yes.
which is another reason why I wanted to have you on.
Right.
And very briefly, before we have to let you
Okay,
go in a
no
few
worries.
minutes, tell me about what is Next Step?
Well, Next Step is located in Lawndale, and it's an organization that works with people with spinal cord injuries and neurological injuries and stuff. And it's a physical therapy arena, and they also do research. They also the funds that we raise and everything also help out with research. It's a nonprofit too, so they are very much needed from the outside community to help them run. And it was one of the gentlemen there, Yanni is his name, was in a very serious diving accident, hit the sandbar, and he's paralyzed. It was basically paralyzed. But they have an assisted treadmill where it unweights you and allows you to mimic gait walk. And
That's
it
very
was,
important because you've got to move.
So
if
important.
you're,
But there
that's a
was-
whole different level.
Yeah.
It's incredible
Yeah.
what people are doing. Money has to be raised
Yes.
because one day,
Right.
perhaps, if you can have an injury like that and you don't have to
Yes.
remain paralyzed. I
Yes.
mean, we're
And
just at
there's-
the beginning of all this.
It is. It's
They,
moving.
yeah, I've read a lot about the stem cell
Yes.
research and
Very
how
much so.
you can regenerate and regrow. I don't know
No,
enough about
it.
it.
Is.
But raising money is
Raising
important.
money, and I do an exercise class out in Las Vegas. We raise money out, and we do a big, huge exercise class out in Vegas. And there's always little functions. We just did a walk around the Rose Bowl. It was kind of cool. We
that's fun.
yeah, we did all the stairs in the Rose Bowl to raise money for and for the research and stuff like that.
Oh, it's
So
beautiful
really,
out there. We
it's
just went
awesome.
over there to do a half marathon and a 5K, and it was beautiful.
Isn't
It was
it cool?
early in the
Yeah.
morning, and
Right.
just a great. Wherever you can go.
Yes,
it doesn't matter. You
absolutely.
can live in the street, not on the street, in the city, and just hit the
Right.
pavement.
Yes.
So, thank you very much for being here. I mean, from a man who hit the sandbar and was temporarily paralyzed,
Right.
you kept your attitude together. And now you're helping other people
Yeah.
through your fitness therapy, I like to call it, with the
I'll take
Maresca
that.
way.
I will take it.
I love that. An
Absolutely.
Italian guy from where? Where are you from?
Well, not Palermo. Sorrento is where my dad's side of the family is.
And where'd you
from.
grow up?
I grew up in Northern California, San Carlos, Redwood City, just south of San Francisco.
And
So-
parents who were ballroom dancers and
Oh,
a
they're
great
solid gold.
inspiration. Oh,
Yes.
that's super cool.
Yes, I
Thank
love
you
it.
for being here,
Thank
and a
you
big
so
shout
much.
out to Joanne Moscone
Thank you, Joanne.
for introducing us.
Right.
And thanks everybody for being here. Another fun edition of Deborah Kobylt Live, and we'll see you next week.